Hey now, what's going on everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and I thought this might be a cool idea that I had to do where I basically sit down and look at a movie that's been remade and compare the original to the remake. Because when I review a movie, when I talk about a movie, I try not to do that. I try not to compare them. I try to look at them as its own thing, although sometimes that's hard to do. But with this actual new series of videos, hopefully that I'm going to do, I will have to do that. I will be comparing them. And the first time doing this, I figured, why not start with one of my favorite horror films of all time, A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's the original. And A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake. So let's go through this piece by piece. We almost have to break it down into sections, into categories of how we're going to decipher which one is better. Let's look at the directors of these movies. Well, the original is Wes Craven. And Wes Craven, he not only directed this film, but he came up with the whole concept, the whole idea of Freddy Krueger came from his own mind. He is responsible for this series pretty much altogether. The remake is directed by Samuel Bayer, who's somebody that I'm not too familiar with, hardly at all. I even looked him up to see like what else has he directed. I didn't really see anything that was all that interesting. The main character in both movies, it's Nancy, the same girl. The original movie, she's played by Heather Lagenkamp, and I really like her as Nancy. I think she is one of the strongest female characters in a horror film, just as far as watching her journey, right? You see her at the beginning, and she's reacting like any high school girl would react in a situation like this. She's scared, she's terrified, but then by the end of it, she's a survivor. She's strong. She's willing to take the fight to Freddy, but Nancy in the remake is played by Rooney Mara. And Rooney Mara, I've seen her in other movies. And in those other movies, I think she's quite good. I like her as an actress. But I don't know what happened here. Like, she was sleepwalking through this movie to where she comes off as a bad actress. If this was the only movie I had seen her in, I would think she's a bad actress. You don't buy her as somebody that will become a strong character. So even by the end of it, where she's supposed to kill Freddy, you don't really buy it. But let's talk about the main thing that we're here to talk about. Freddy Krueger, Fred Krueger. In the original movie, he's played by Robert Englund, and he played this character through all of the original movies. I believe it was 9 movies altogether. Something like that. It's a lot. Robert Englund can play this character in his sleep. I'm pretty sure, like in part 5, he did play it in his sleep. But when you think of Freddy, you think of him, right? The way how he poured everything into this character, his mannerisms, his one-liners, especially the ones that came later on. This guy was everywhere. Freddy was everywhere. And you can't just put somebody else in makeup or in the sweater and be like, oh, well, that person's Freddy now. Like, you could never recast this person without us initially rejecting it at first. So there's that. But when you get to the remake, and he's played by Jackie Earl Haley, who is another actor that I like. I loved him as Rorschach in Watchmen. I thought he was great. One of the problems is that he has that same Rorschach voice as Freddy, and Freddy shouldn't have Rorschach's voice. He shouldn't. It's too deep, it's too raspy, But there are moments where, the remake is playing Freddy as more dark, as more serious. Probably the most serious we've ever seen him, if you don't really count Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because they're playing him as he's a straight-up child molester. The other movies might have hinted at it or might have suggested it in ways, but this movie's flat out, no, this guy has done this. and he likes it. Some of the lines that he does have, I think it's in one of the trailers where he, why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet. Like, there's some things, some lines that I go like, okay, that's creepy. Also, the makeup designs, I mean, you can't really beat the original. I'm not saying the original is the best Freddy makeup. It very well might be. I'd have to sit down and think about which movie had the best Freddy makeup, but this is damn near one of the best. The remake, again, they were going for something completely different. They were going for an actual burnt victim's face. They wanted it to look realistic because everything nowadays has to be dark, gritty, and realistic, right? I don't know. I think the idea behind his look was justified. I understand it. And they're going for something different. So in those aspects, you should praise them. But in other ways, you look at Freddy's face and you go like, really? That's supposed to be Freddy? He looks more like an alien. Or like, I don't know, like a mongoloid or something. Now, the supporting characters. Like in the original movie, we had Tina. Tina is presented to us as who we think is the main character, and we follow her for the first at least 20 minutes, and then she gets killed off. I love that. I love that setup. I love making us think that this is the main character and then killing her. That's something that I don't know how many times they've done it at that point. I know Psycho did it, but still, it was still fresh. It was still different. It was still new, and I'm sure it was still shocking. And then, of course, you have Johnny Depp as Glen. Johnny Depp's very first movie. It's so funny to go back now and see how young he was. He was like 18 years old. John Saxton as Nancy's father. I love his character. Not only as the father, as the guy who's trying to be there for Nancy. He's trying to believe her, but admittedly her story sounds far-fetched. So he's just more worried about keeping her safe. Her mom, Nancy's mom is an alcoholic, so she comes off as unreliable, somebody who's just a drunk, and even when Nancy has that blow up at her. But it's through the mom that you find out the backstory, what all of the parents in the town did to Fred Krueger and what's making him come back for revenge. Let's talk about now the remake with the supporting characters. Katie Cassidy essentially plays the Tina character, and I think Katie Cassidy was fine, especially in comparison to the remake's Nancy. I think Katie Cassidy was somebody that I didn't want to see die, but I knew she was going to die because of what happened in the original. Kellan Lutz is very brief in the film. It's at the very beginning, but I don't know. He's a decent actor. His death scene also I thought was effective for a beginning to the movie. And Kyle Gallner, who isn't Glen, he's Quentin, but still, I like him as an actor. I liked him, between him and Nancy together. Clearly, I liked him more. Well, let's get to the kills. In the original movie, we have Tina's death, which is, if I could sit down and do a top 10 favorite kills in a horror movie, this would have to make the list, where she just gets dragged up along the wall and the ceiling, and she's screaming out for her boyfriend, reaching out to him, and he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. There's blood all across the ceiling, and she's getting cut up by Freddy and then just falls to the bed. Glen, Johnny Depp's death in this film, is my favorite horror kill of all time. It is. It's so amazing. Him getting sucked up into the bed, and then the blood, the gallons and gallons of blood that shoots up into the ceiling. It's a great visual. It looks creepy as fuck. It's literally Johnny Depp getting dragged to hell, and then you see the aftermath of it. And then his mom walking in and seeing that and just freaking out because she doesn't know what the hell is going on. Let's talk about the remake, though. Like I said, Kellan Lutz cuts his own throat. So this is something that was in part 3 of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, where Freddy was making it look like the kids were committing suicide or trying to kill themselves. That's how they got locked up into the hospital. So yeah, it's carried over. Kitty Cassidy, she has the Tina death. Although her version is very goofy. She gets like, she rises up from the bed, which is kind of cool. Freddy just like tosses her around the room, bounces her across the walls, and just, it's very goofy. I'm like, how can I take this seriously? This whole movie's supposed to be darker and serious, but then this is very goofy. Sure, the effects of her getting slashed might look better, but still kind of goofy. Before I announce the winner, let's talk about the endings of each movie. The original ending for the original is Nancy, like I said, fighting back. Fighting Freddy and telling him, you're not shit. You're not shit. I'm taking away my fear that I have of you, which takes away your power, and you're nothing. You're nothing. And Freddy, you know, he physically can't do anything to her. He lunges at her, but he just vanishes. And then Nancy sort of, I guess it's a dream, because she's back with her mom, who Freddy previously killed. She's back with her friends, who are all alive now. They go into the car, and then Freddy takes control of the car and drives off. So maybe you could say a downbeat, depressing ending, I guess. The remake's ending is after Nancy and Quentin kill Freddy. She's home talking to her mom, and then Freddy somehow comes out of the mirror and kills her mom while she's awake. I never understood that. I was like, wait, so, like, how did Freddy come out of the mirror when both characters are awake? I mean, I know the movie explains, or they set up the whole idea of micro-naps, which is something I actually like a lot. It's one of the coolest things that the remake does, where if you're awake for more than 72 hours, 3 days, you start to experience this they call it micro-naps, where your brain almost starts to shut off. Like, you start to dream while you're awake, and you might fall into a coma. So there's one scene where Nancy's in one of the drugstores, and she's going in and out of consciousness, and the aisle, you see it going from that to the boiler room, and Freddy's coming towards her. And then he's flicking his glove across, and he knocks over the stuff on the shelves, but no one's really there, and she's freaking out. That's something that I think is one of the best ideas they've ever done. So that's something I can give the remake, but still I don't understand how Freddy was able to kill her mom while they were awake. Who knows? Because I never did a sequel to it. All in all, I think it's pretty obvious. Some people might say it was obvious before even making this video, doing the breakdown, that the original is better. I'm sorry, remake. I've seen some people say that they like the remake more. Fuck. I mean, okay, that's cool, but when you break it down, it doesn't hold up. The original always wins. I love this movie. I love it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this new thing that I'm going to start doing. Let me know in the comments below, not only do you agree that the original is better, but what horror remake or original movie do you want to see me do next? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!